instead of uniting everybody around like we're scared about what this is or risk, it's what do we proactively do on the Falcon platform with our Frontier AI model partners to go meet customers where they are. It's a privilege to have the trust of thousands of companies that partner with CrowdStrike join in what I think is the greatest mobilization in cyber that there may have ever really been.
You're watching Security or Else.
All right, DB, thanks so much for being here. It's great to see you.
Kyle, always great to see you.
There's been so much change in just all aspects of cybersecurity. And I would just love to hear, as far as your conversations with customers, how quickly has their thinking changed about cybersecurity in the wake of Mythos, but also all of these other developments?
Yeah, we call it here the Mythos moment. That was really in this like March, April time earlier this year. I think what it's done is it's really brought awareness to the category at a new pronounced level. And so whether that's boards that are asking for briefings, whether that's leadership teams that are now going to educational programs on cyber and educating the broader team on cyber, cyber has gone from a category that was proverbially in the boiler room to now being really a boardroom topic and a top priority, really hand in hand with frontier AI adoption and AI adoption in general. So I think a couple of things have happened. One is the risks associated with the new threat landscape of today and agentic threat landscape. You have that happening hand in hand with the organizational desire to adopt more AI. All that results in an extreme focus and desire for cyber and cyber as a necessity for AI adoption.
Has it really been kind of a sea change in terms of the attitudes that are out there about cybersecurity?
C-level change and an opportunity to mobilize and unite our ecosystem. And that's why shortly after Project Glasswing came out, we had Project Quiltworks that we came out, which was instead of uniting everybody around like we're scared about what this is or risk, it's what do we proactively do on the Falcon platform with our Frontier AI model partners to go meet customers where they are and to actually stop risk and limit risk and then ultimately fix risk. And so this has been a moment to unite a lot of different constituents around the importance of cyber, but also the importance of CrowdStrike in playing such a active role in helping the end customer know what they need to secure against and understand what new frontier model risk looks like and what its implications are for their overall security posture, but then take the proactive steps and make sure that they're using the right tooling to start to reduce that risk. This is ultimately the power of the crowd and the power of what we were built for. It's moments like these when risk is at an unprecedented level, when necessity is there, and when you've got the right technology platform and the right ecosystem to really meet the moment. And I think that's exactly what we've done.
Do you have conversations with customers where, initially they're just very taken aback and overwhelmed by, the immensity of this and possibly the challenges?
Well, I think in general, as time's gone by, people have realized the sun still comes up in the morning. They still wake up and their business still operates. But certainly the heightened awareness around what this means is, I think, something that continues really at the same level. Specifically, when you use these models and you use the Falcon platform, for example, use our exposure management, it's like turning a light on in a dark room and seeing all these little hairline cracks in a wall. Now, do hairline cracks in a wall in isolation mean the wall's going to fall? Probably not most of the time. But if the right pressure is applied to the wall in the right ways, the wall can crumble. And I think that's really akin to what's going on in the market today and where the questions are and where the opportunities are to think about a program differently. Really, the global 2000, they're all a very similar discussion, which is a very systematic desire to understand what risk looks like, how to quantify risk, and then ultimately how to divide it up into different categories and put the right protection plans in place. I also get the pleasure of dealing with a whole different set of the market, small and medium businesses, where they know there's a problem, but they don't know what the problem is. And in their mind, the walls are falling all the time and they don't really know what to do about it. And it's not like they can go send their SOC team and their compliance team and their broader technology teams on a task force mission and bring in the very best of the GSIs to solve the problem. they need a click button approach to solving the problem. So I think we're in a unique spot in the market where everybody's impacted. But the question is just, what are the tools at your disposal, and how do you prioritize solving the problem so that everybody can still see the same outcome?
Has there been, a way to bring security to more SMBs, even just with, some of these advancements in AI that CrowdStrike's adopting for your platform? Has that made it easier in some way for you to serve SMBs in a bigger way?
A couple answers there, Kyle. First, what this has done is helped SMBs realize that they need to invest in security. Even if they don't really understand all the different elements of Mythos and Project Glasswing and what's a vulnerability, I think the idea that now my company of 50 employees has, hundreds of agents running around, these agents are touching my data and have access to a lot of different tools and customer information. There's a general sense that I need to have visibility, compliance, and security over all these new, all this whole category of new. So I think that's a positive thing. And it's sort of like obvious to business owners, and it's obvious to security decision makers that they need to do something about it. The question is, what do you do about it, and who do you work with? Because this isn't necessarily an off-the-shelf point and click solution today. And for a variety of reasons, it's something that requires the right awareness, context, and installation. So ultimately, you don't want to get in the way of business process. And I think in the small and medium businesses, what I've seen is MSPs and MSSPs really stepping up, and the opportunity is on them. What we've done is we've taken Project Quiltworks and we've actually productized it on top of the Falcon platform. So the methodology of vulnerability discovery, prioritization, remediation, and communication can become a click for a partner to deliver for the end customer. Taking the methodology and turning the methodology into an outcome for the customer and guiding that. And you can even have an agent do it for you. But it's made so that operators can guide a customer through this, I think is very powerful. What I've seen in the market is a lot of vendors saying, I'm having a lot of meetings. And that's great. We're focused on what are we doing for the customer? What new technologies are we bringing in? What new outcomes are we delivering? And what risks are we reducing? The conversation, the focus, whether it's a small, medium business or it's a large enterprise, needs to be on how is the risk profile better following the engagement in Project Quiltworks than it was before. That's the North Star. Not how many calls, not how many meetings, not how many emails. Those are all vanity metrics. The real metric is how much risk have we reduced? And I think that that's the moment in the calling of today.
What have been some of the results of Quiltworks that you've seen so far? And also, if you could just, say a little more about how Quiltworks was, something that you pulled together very quickly and felt like it was something that had been missing until you did this with CrowdStrike.
Yeah, so I'll hit that one first and then I'll come back to results. But we were part of this group of great companies. And really the only pure play cyber from the start for all these different things, of saying, wow, these new models are very powerful. There needs to be an organized response and an organized release of these models so that the defenders have the advantage, that businesses have the advantage instead of adversaries having the advantage. I think everybody's united on that perspective. And let's actually unite on the delivery of the model. Let's unite on the remediation and the response so that you're protected, not just for whatever the model is today, but the models of tomorrow. And I think that requires a new kind of collaboration in the industry. It requires a new kind of engagement with the customer, and it requires a customer to say, I need something different than I had before. I need to be ready for this new thing, for this new kind of adversary, for a new kind of security program where I'm not measuring my people in terms of number of alerts and clicks, but I need to measure in terms of outcomes and risk reduction. So look, why recreate the wheel? Project Glasswing was a great way to unite the diverse stakeholders around understanding and awareness for the model. Let's do the same thing over again, but for security, by security in our industry. And there was nobody better to do it than us at CrowdStrike to bring so many different partner types together. And that resulted in GSIs working together, different people who compete with each other on the daily, sharing information and playbooks and methodology with each other. It resulted in some of our VARs that have services arms entering the fold at the start. It resulted in a fundamentally new approach to cyber insurance to understand what frontier AI risk means and using data from the project to write better policies and fine-tune coverage. It's resulting in new small and medium business initiatives and uniting some of our aggregators and MSPs that service the down market customer. And it's also resulting in ISVs that have complementary and sometimes also competitive technologies working together in new ways to have a consistent approach to solving the problem. Here's how I know it works. The customer outcomes, but also it's funny to watch now all these other companies try and create their own coalitions around the same thing. So everybody wants to have a coalition and throw a party. That's great. But we're blessed and it's a privilege to have the trust of thousands of companies that partner with CrowdStrike join in what I think is the greatest mobilization in cyber that there may have ever really been, which is, and we're just in the beginnings of it. The beginnings are, what do we do about the vulnerabilities and the speed acceleration that we're all seeing from AI? Just wait. There's going to be a whole new set of step level change in running a cybersecurity program that is going to come from what AI is bringing to the market. Okay. Your other question was, what are the outcomes that are, what have you seen from Quiltworks? What I've seen is at this point, millions and millions and millions, probably hundreds of millions of vulnerabilities that people discovered they had that they didn't know about before. So I kind of come back, Kyle, to like health. When, you go from just going to a regular appointment. Yeah, you're fine. It's good. Your pulse is there. It's normal. Your blood pressure is probably fine. So when you get one of those scans and it's like, did you know that one of your arteries is, X% blocked? And you start to think at that point about, what do you want to change in your life? Like, do you want to eat differently? Do you want to work out differently? Do you want to get on some preventative medications? And ultimately you take some choices and you become healthier, and you see that in your day-to-day life. And I think like the aha moment that people have had in the last 20 to 30 years around health is the aha moment that we're having in cyber when people say, I can get much more pinpointed on a care regimen and I can solve different problems. I can solve a cholesterol problem. I can solve a vision problem. I can solve a blood pressure problem. I can solve a weight problem. These are all, like before it was just like, are you healthy? Are you unhealthy? Now we're able to get much more specific on what part of the body, what part of the security program needs to be tweaked. The outcome is in health, better quality of life and hopefully a longer life. And I think in security, it's very, very similar. It's how does every day, every hour, and every minute become a moment where you're worried less and where you're having to ultimately do less and put out fewer fires.
Are you hopeful, I guess, that, with all of these efforts, that some of the, maybe worst case scenarios that have been floated out there for what could happen with exploitation of vulnerabilities, that some of those maybe are not going to need to happen because the preparations are being done and because people are actually doing things like working with Quiltworks to, find all these vulnerabilities and address them before they can be exploited?
I think it's the only thing that we can do, because in this situation, the risk is rather asymmetric. Again, the adversary or the bad person only has to be right once. Us in the defense business have to be right all the time, and ideally as near all the time as possible. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, the models are in the hands of the wrong people. So it comes down to like, how do we actually like tilt the stakes and the odds in the favor of the good guys? Like, defense needs to have the advantage. So the only way to do that is with the power of the crowd and working together. And I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in cybersecurity, because the need is so much greater every day than it was the day before. And that's a moment. And that's a realization that not only like we have, but that the customer has. And when you have that kind of environment, it's super fulfilling to be able to work with people that know that they want better, that they need different, and that they have to solve new problems. And they're looking to you to solve that problem. That's what everybody at CrowdStrike feels every single day, and our entire ecosystem feels every single day. And you know, I think it's an opportunity that really hasn't ever been there before. And it all came from the Mythos moment. And we were ready for it the whole time. I think the question is the market wasn't ready or didn't know that they had the problem. And the light bulb in the dark room has been turned on, and we're there to solve a problem. And so you couldn't ask for really a better setup, because the customer is realizing and knows that they have the problem. So am I worried? Yeah. But like, people that work in security are always worried. Being worried doesn't result in a positive outcome. What results in a positive outcome is doing something about it. And that's what we did with Project Quiltworks. And frankly, that's also what our frontier model partners, Anthropic and OpenAI with Daybreak, that's what they're doing too. Like, when people are doing things and solving problems in general, they're happier. They're why take the cognitive space and put it towards something with no outcome? Take the cognitive space and be proactive about solving a problem, and good things happen on the other side of that. When you're solving problems for customers, you're building your business. When you're building your business, you're solving problems for the customer. These are the right steps to take. And that's certainly what I've seen across our ecosystem, across all those different partner types that I talked about before, but also across such unique and different customers, from customers in healthcare to customers in manufacturing, to oil and gas customers, to power and utilities customers, to professional services customers, to retail customers. I mean, this is impacting everybody. There's not like a vertical. This isn't a vertical problem. This is a global problem, and we're solving it.
You mentioned that you felt like CrowdStrike has been ready for this, and that's interesting just because it does seem like the need hasn't been there to invent a whole new set of tools for this. I mean, there's obviously some areas where you needed to extend things into AI for protecting AI, but exposure management, you and others already had exposure management. And a lot of these other technologies that are helpful with protecting against AI, even just core endpoint security, all of these things have been in place. And so it hasn't, required some kind of reinvention of what vendors are offering.
Correct. That's a good point. Like, the flashlight in your backpack, when it's daylight and when the power in the house works, you don't really need it. Or you have it, and maybe you use it sometimes when you're looking for something. But all of a sudden, when the power's cut and the lights are off, that flashlight's pretty amazing. And I think that's kind of akin to the moment. If you have the right tools in your briefcase, or and you're ready and you know what to do with them, fortune favors being prepared. And I think that's one of the hallmark rules of security in general. That's nothing related to CrowdStrike. It's like, if you're prepared for the rainy day, when it does rain, you're better prepared to deal with it. You're better equipped to deal with it. And I think this is one of those moments where, the tide came out and you saw who was wearing what and who was prepared for what, the challenges of the day. And you kind of see two different sets of actors in the market in cybersecurity. You see the companies who are emerging on the back of this and really helping the customer in a material way, and their businesses are growing. And then you see others, the high tide raises all the ships, but you see others floundering with this situation. Our goal is we want everybody in our ecosystem to grow. The conversation that I have every single day with whoever I'm talking to, it starts with, how can I help you grow? And it ends with, how can I help you grow? Because there's so much opportunity for everybody right now. It's a growth focused discussion, but that growth is dependent on, do you have the right tools to actually go execute on something that's going to help you grow? Or are you subscale and, operating in a different era of technology or a different era of process? So you can't even, you don't even have the gutters to pick up the rain that's falling on that's falling all around you right now. Like, the benefit of this market is the high tide raises all the ships. But if your ship has a bunch of holes in it, you may not see the rising tide is not always a benefit. The rising tide can drown you. And I think that's what we're starting to see in the market. A bunch of companies kind of lost and not being able to capitalize and see the outcomes of today in their business and not be helpful to customers. We're able to to benefit from this environment and to provide a lot of meaningful value to the 100,000 plus customers that we serve.
And as far as partners go, I would love to hear how essential they are, as a piece here to, make this possible and make it possible that the worst case scenarios from frontier AI and vulnerability exploitation, all of that those scenarios don't come true.
First, I think the realization at the beginning, Kyle, and I say the beginning of this, the AI, the industrial revolution, the internet, the AI revolution was AI is going to replace me, whoever the me is. And I think the partner community was just as afraid of that as everybody else. And where we are today is AI is not replacing anybody. AI is evolving everybody. And so the conversations that I'm having are like, how are you using AI in your business? If you're selling a box today the same way you sold it before, you might be replaced. Replaced, not like categorically replaced, but somebody else is going to do it better than you. And so the reinvention that I spent probably the first 6 months of the year talking about with the ecosystem is, I think, so important. And what I mean by that is, how are you using AI tools in your business? Because if you don't have an answer, and I get on with a lot of executives, these are executives of 20,000 people companies, 30,000 people companies. And I'm like, I'm speaking English. Like, this isn't Greek. This isn't like, what are you doing? And if they don't have answers, I'm sitting there wondering, are you going to be there for me over the next couple of years? Are you going to be able to grow faster than the market? And so I think what's going on right now is a reinvention of a lot of business models and a lot of business practices. What is the right optimization of people and agents? How do I get more out of the software that I'm using? How do I nurture and generate leads in a new way? And how do I take a lead down a funnel into a sale? And how do I support a customer in a new way? And fundamentally, it doesn't matter what part of security or technology you're in. If you're not asking that question and thinking about new answers to those principles, like AI doesn't change gravity. It doesn't change the principles of reality, which are to run a business, you need to bring in more customers. You need to, and ultimately you want that on a graph going up to the right. Those customers need to buy something from you that they value and see the value from it. And you need to keep them happy using it and get them to use more of it, whatever it is, or new things. Like, by the way, before the internet and before technology, everything I said was true. Same thing. That's the world. AI doesn't change that.
Mm-hmm.
What AI changes is how you do that. And I think that's the opportunity that the people you speak with and the people that I speak with are all grappling with today is, what part of that value chain do they live in or do they want to live in? And how are they going to meet the opportunity of using AI successfully to deliver more value and to deliver differentiated value? And if you're going to find two groups of people, those that are able to answer the question, winners. And those that are stuck, they don't even know what question to ask, or they don't understand the question. And if they're in that bucket, I think they're going to be in the dustbin. And I think that's the opportunity. But I'm so excited about it because I'm seeing all sorts of new ideas turn into new actions. And it's never been easier to go from idea to action in this world that we're in today. And you don't need to be at a Fortune 500 company to have a great idea and to produce a great outcome. There's this huge democratizing force that's happening where a startup can operate a marketing campaign just as well as the world's best ad agency. It's pretty cool. Like, that's the opportunity and that's the opportunity space and world that we live in. And that's huge for CrowdStrike because our ecosystem is able to do more than it's ever done before.
Well, I had one more thing that I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned earlier, feeling like this is the best time to be in cybersecurity that, we've had, that the industry has had. And I guess what I'm wondering is, your feeling is this is not some kind of temporary thing either, right? Like, it's going to continue to be a real peak time for cybersecurity, for the foreseeable future here.
Cybersecurity used to be a parallel function to the innovation curve. And I think what's changed is that, one, the innovation curve is not flat. The slope is really accelerating. almost at like a hyperbolic exponential pace. And two, the trailing has turned into mirroring. So like the lines, if you're putting it on a graph, it used to be up here and maybe down here was like where now it's like these things are going in lockstep. If I want to deploy AI and use AI, I need to secure my AI. It's like in the same sentence. It's not like if I'm going to deploy AI, I'm going to get around to securing it maybe next year or in 3 years after that. We'll figure it out later. Like we'll figure it out later has turned into we're figuring out now, today. Let's go. And that's the opportunity. And that's why this has changed. This isn't like 1 week or 1 quarter of change. This is a step level, C-level change of that impacts how you do things from now into the future. And that's why I say there's never been a better time to be in cybersecurity, because the business process before was, I'm going to reinvent how I do X, and then I'll worry about how I'll secure X later. Or do I need security for X? Like there wasn't a clear linkage to like productivity and security. Today, the input to productivity is security. If I don't secure what I'm doing from the start, I can't do it. And so that linkage is what this new world looks like for us and what this new world looks like for our ecosystem, because these things are so interrelated. As long as people are adopting and using technology, which newsflash, they're going to be doing from here on out at a faster rate than ever before. The question is, how am I going to secure it is hand in hand with that productivity initiative. That's the change. That's the opportunity. And that's what this is all about, and why the market is really in a different place today than it was weeks, months, and years before.
Well, terrific. Well, DB, thank you so much for being here. So many great insights. Just such a great conversation. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Exciting times. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed, you can like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And join us next time as we explore what's hype, what's real, and what channel partners truly need to focus on next in security, or else.